Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Woke by Accident podcast. Today we have a special guest, AnjaAfreeca, host of the podcast AA Exit the Matrix.
Justice for you and me. Justice for Mike Brown.
No justice, no peace.
After the death that shook the entire country, I decided to step up as a community activist and create a global podcast, Woke by Accident. Here, I amplify compelling news stories and matters impacting African Americans and their communities. My goal is to give a voice to the voiceless and have the difficult conversations needed to advance relations and matters of race. Tune in to Woke by Accident podcast. I am your host, Jen, and it is streaming on all of your favorite streaming platforms, as well as our website, www.wokebyaccident.net. Thank you for listening and take care. Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Woke by Accident podcast. Today we have a special guest, AnjaAfreeca, host of the podcast, the AA Exit of the Matrix. Welcome to the show, Anja.
Thank you.
How
Pleasure
are
to be
you?
here. I'm good. I'm blessed.
Good to have you here. So, in light of the various displays of injustice done to African Americans, a lot of which we've talked about on this very show, from Trayvon Martin, Sandra Bland, Mike Brown, Ahmaud Arbery, Rayshard Brooks, Elijah McClain, Breonna Taylor, just to name a few, many Blacks have made a decision to leave the United States permanently. So, when I heard that you made this move, this sparked my attention and I wanted to have a conversation. And so today, AnjaAfreeca will share with us about this journey that she's made. So tell us about that journey.
It goes back to exactly what you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
You're sitting in your house during the pandemic, right? And you're hearing about all these people being brutally assaulted, terrorized, killed, and you're just like, no, it's a matter of time before it's going to be me or mine.
Yes.
Or what happens if I go out to the supermarket and I get stopped? That could be me. And so it was very personal for me. I absolutely looked at it like I wasn't safe. My son wasn't safe. I couldn't keep him safe. And that is not a good feeling to have as a parent, as a mother, as a cousin, whatever your maternal role might be in your family. It's just not a good position to be in. And the more that happened and the way it was handled, I always knew people were going to be not guilty. And that was just the worst for me. That they would be, charged with the minor offenses versus the major offenses, because that is how our system is set up.
Definitely. And so these aftermaths of the social justice movements and cases did play a part in your decision. And like you said, you did feel that you were in danger, or your family was in danger, or potentially could be in danger.
Absolutely.
What steps or precautions went into the processes as far as planning to make the journey to Africa?
I was in fight or flight mode.
Okay.
I really was. There was no in between for me, right? And it's like, okay, well, I don't have weapons in my house, so what's left to do? And so I just started to research. One of the things I did was to get rid of all social media. I got rid of my television because the news was upsetting me. Mm-hmm. It just was not feeding my spirit positive energy. And I was like, I cannot listen to this. It was making me more afraid, quite honestly. So I said to myself, that's it. I started looking at YouTube and I started researching countries, places that I could go. Forgive my lighting. I think it's about to rain soon because the clouds are sliding through, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So I started doing my research on YouTube, and I was looking at people who had repatriated, who were traveling to the continent, who had feet on the ground and could give actual reports. Because we were not getting that in the States. We were getting a lot of negative propaganda. We were being told that COVID was rampant on the continent. And, there were going to be seas full of Africans dead in the oceans because of COVID. And I was just like, they've lied to us thus far. So why would I believe what they're saying now? I need to see for myself, So with that took me researching what airlines were flying to where I wanted to go, what countries would offer what I felt I needed. And quite honestly, I didn't need much. All I needed was an ocean view.
Okay.
And some peace and quiet. I wanted, of course, the currency to be something I could deal with. I went to Sierra Leone. I had $100. I was a millionaire in Sierra Leone. I did a video where I talk about being a millionaire for a day, right? And then I come to the Gambia, and it's 50 of their Dalasi to $1 American. So a 5,000 Dalasi equals $100 American.
Okay, so the cost of living is substantially
Absolutely. Yeah.
different. Okay.
That's it. And let's not even talk about like rental costs, right? Because I have a 2-bedroom apartment where I have the whole 3rd floor. I'm talking at least 50 feet of apartment that spans the beach. I had 2 patios. Every bedroom has its own bathroom. I have a half bath. My rent is less than $400.
Really?
And I'm on the ocean. So yeah, I was like, I'm out of here quick.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes.
Because I've been thinking like, oh, that would be so expensive to,
Not at all. And even my business, what you pay for 1 month rent in New York City, I paid for 1 year to rent my shop.
Okay, so you're coming from New York.
Yes. Well, I lived in New York prior to moving to Pennsylvania. I was in Reading, Pennsylvania for 18 years.
Okay. Wow.
And then I had enough of the little towns.
Yeah. So how long did you research and that type of thing? What was that process or the timeline?
I'd say 6 months to a year, because I came in December of last year. And now I've been here for a little over a year. So I came in December. I stayed on the continent for 45 days. I went to Ghana, Sierra Leone, and Gambia. I had my teenage son with me at the time. He was just graduating. He turned 19. We took a total of 9 COVID tests.
Okay.
And then we, because we were traveling at the height of the pandemic. And then I decided Gambia was the space. I was like, I love Gambia. Like, I want to move there. My son's like, are you serious? Like, I'm graduating. I said, no, you're not. It's virtual. It's not like you're walking across a stage. Let's go, And so I got him back in time. He was able to go to his graduation, but it was right before graduation. So, of course, the school was like, oh, well, he's not going to meet certain requirements. I was like, whatever subjects you have, he will be able to answer from the perspective of the continent.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
You can't teach your students that if you wanted to. Let him do a presentation when he returns, and you can give him what he needs to graduate. And that's what they did.
Okay. And then it didn't impact your business negatively. You were able to maintain. Really, a lot of people work virtually anyhow. And so as long as you had, access
I wasn't working. Yeah, at that time, I had online businesses. So I was an online seller. So it was perfect. I did Poshmark, eBay. I just froze my accounts while I traveled. And I even brought back more goodies to put online once I returned. So it worked out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. That is so interesting. And then I wanted to get your take on another perspective. There's actually been a lot of talk about Black people leaving the United States lately in the news and such.
Yeah.
Uh, One, I share with you African American author Tiffany Drayton. She wrote a book, The Black American Refugee Escaping the Narcissism of the American Dream. And in it, she compares Black Americans' relationship with the United States as a abusive relationship. And we're talking about like all the things you would go through in a bad relationship, love bombing and gaslighting, and just all
Yes.
these bad feelings.
Yeah.
And wanted to know if you felt a similar comparison.
What can I say? I feel like she's talking about me. Like we must have been dating the same person, right? Oh, absolutely. I think if you view it in that way as a relationship, then you're assuming that your mate is going to be protective of you and make you
Right.
feel safe, right? And that
Yes.
you can come to them and talk about anything. And that relationship is reciprocated, it's a give and take. But that is not the relationship that Black Americans have with America.
Okay.
They just constantly take. They take, they take our ideas, they take our innovations,
Mm.
um, they take our freedom,
Mm-hmm. True.
right? And even at jobs, they will try to take your success, steal
Mm-hmm.
your ideas. So I can completely relate to her analogy because that is the feeling you have. Like someone is constantly taking from you, it's not being reciprocated, and you're not safe on top of everything. And to have
That's
that
true.
feeling of not being safe in your own home, like let's not forget, at the height of the pandemic, people were hoarding food. People were buying
Yes.
everything out of the supermarkets. When you
Mm-hmm.
went out, people were standing 6 feet apart. And of course, there were people who weren't doing that, who were invading your space, who refused to wear masks.
Mm-hmm. That is so true. I think
Like we
back
don't
to
talk about that part. It was very scary during that time, you
it
know?
was, yeah, the toilet paper thing,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
everything was really scary.
yes,
The shelves being almost bare in the grocery stores, and calling to find out when the shipment would be at, the
yeah,
stores and having to resort to the dollar stores to get what you need because the major grocery stores were just, people would clear them out and,
yes,
really making it unfair for, the general public. Someone would take everyone, everything that they had or what have you to their
yes.
benefit. So it was almost like a every man for themselves kind of situation. So it was really rough at
It
some
was. And
points
don't
there.
forget, in addition to that, there's a difference between being part of a family
Hmm.
and being a single person dealing with that.
Right.
Right? If you were alone, you were isolated from people that you might have usually had access to, even your own family. If they
Yes.
were away in other states, it was just myself and my son. So there was
Hmm.
no, I'm going to mom, I'm going to grandma. All of the elders in my family have passed away. And the few
Hmm.
that were still alive lived in other states. They're in Alabama, they're in New York. So there wasn't direct access to people, and elders were locking themselves away from their family. So you had
Hmm.
elders that were alone. So, mental health was on an increase at that time.
True.
People were dealing with depression and anxiety and don't have medical challenges on top of that. Like it was a
Right.
horrible time. I remember feeling like, my throat chakra was blocked because I wasn't speaking to people. I wasn't expressing
Mm.
myself.
Hmm.
There was anxiety, like tightness in my chest and in my stomach. Like all the chakras were blocked at that time because there
Okay.
was no, release for it. I was afraid every time my son would go out because you know how kids are. I'm like, you're around your friends playing basketball. I hope you guys are wearing masks and you're not going to bring me back anything.
Right.
It was
That's
really that type of feeling. So yeah, it was a scary time. It really
it was.
was. Yeah.
So you did your research and you made the trip. And did you go ahead like to check it out or just
Yes.
on? Okay.
Yeah.
So that was a part of the research too. So you've been there, you said for like, has it been a year and some change or how long?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
When I came the first time, like I said, I did Ghana 2.5 weeks, Sierra Leone 2.5, and then the Gambia 2 weeks. And then I headed back to the States. I knew that my lease where I was currently at was going to be expiring in June. And I was like, you know what? When my lease ends, I'm out of here.
Okay.
I'm literally out of here. And my son was like, are you serious? Now, we had just left a 4-bedroom house that I shared with a partner at the time. And I wanted to stay in the same community because, you know, we're conditioned to think that our children have to stay at the same schools from like preschool because that's healthy. Now that I know better, I would have homeschooled him. We could have traveled all over the world. He'd know 3 different languages, you know, but that's the kind of conditioning we get in the West. So I said, well, when I left that 4-bedroom house, I said, I'm going to just get an apartment for the 2 of us so he can finish up high school because he was in his last year.
Okay.
And then we took the trip. So once I brought him back, he said he didn't want to come back to the continent because he wanted to start some classes at the community college and he wanted to work. You know, he's a young man, so I respect the fact that he is a man and can make decisions on his own. I was like, you grown. I'm an empty nester. This is chapter 2. Mommy's out. You know where to find me when you want to do some 4-wheeling on the beach, you know, or you want to go visit, you can come see mommy. So, yeah.
That's good. But he did respect your decision to go and supported you for doing so.
He did. He struggled. Now, don't get me wrong. He was very supportive when I was leaving, but he cried at the airport. And that's when I knew it really hit him. When I saw the tears coming down, you know.
Oh, I would have cried too.
Then at about a month in, he started to be like a little abrupt on the phone. And I was like, you good? Like, what's wrong with you? You know, I just really can't believe you left like that. And I'm like, what? Say what now? Like, you knew I was leaving. Where's this coming from? And I think it just really hit him that I wasn't there. Luckily, you know, he's with my ex-husband. So they are sharing a home together. So he's not alone, but you know, there's nothing like having mom. So
definitely. Yeah. That's interesting that you said that, being at the airport and getting emotional. I haven't been many places on a plane. So you know, but the one, I don't know, I think it was my honeymoon. My parents were dropping us off and I cried because I was leaving my parents. And I'm like, really? But I had never really been too many places, you know, away from home. And so it was just for a few days, but I just was like,
But that's when the reality hits you that, wow, like I have my own family now.
Yeah.
You know, and I know I'm coming back, but there's something about it. Like I'm really out the house at this point.
Right.
You know? So that's sweet.
Different. It does. So life has been well being on the continent since you've been there.
It has. You know, I have to tell you, any little odd experiences that I've had, it has been with African Americans. It really has. A lot of our folks come here with a lot of trauma from the West, a lot of baggage, and they bring those behaviors with them, unfortunately. They bring them across the water. They really do. Because, you know, we talk about colonizers, we talk about unity, but our folks come over here and they show their entire backsides. And you're just like,
really?
Ooh, yeah. So it's really interesting. You know, Gambia is really undeveloped. So people are coming here, they're starting businesses. They're just bringing things that are not here. Like you can have any idea. You go in a store, you go to buy something, they don't have it. You're like, oh, that's a business. It's that simple. It's really that simple. So that's what people are doing. But there's a lot of folks that come here with unresolved issues. You know, you can leave the States, but you can't run away from yourself.
That's
so
true.
I tell people, in doing your research yourself. Start there. Is this move really for you? Are you really ready to leave the conveniences of the West behind? Because some people are like, you know, if I don't have hot water or I don't have water pressure, that's a done deal for me. That's a deal
Oh
breaker.
yeah,
You know, for
definitely.
some people, that's really important. But what can I say? The having the ability to breathe and really experience freedom
Hmm.
and walk and everybody looks like me. And I'm on every billboard because every billboard has brown people. That
Yes.
feeling, when I tell you there's nothing like it, there's just nothing like it, you know? And
Okay.
going to the beach and eating foods that are coming from the dirt to your table.
Hmm.
They're not passing through nobody's hands. Ain't nobody spraying no chemicals on them.
Oh wow.
You know, you look at my videos when I first arrived and you see me now, you're like, woo, like you lost weight. And I'm like, well, dag, I didn't know I was considered plump. I look back at the videos and I realized that my face is a little smaller and I probably
Okay.
dropped 2 sizes without even trying.
Oh wow. Okay.
But that's what the continent does to people. Everybody's walking around with clothes that are too big, okay? Because the heat, you know, the heat, the sun, the fresh food, the salt water takes the weight right off. People are no longer taking their medications because they just don't need them anymore. People are healed. Like I wore glasses when I came here.
Uh-huh.
I'm nearsighted. I have astigmatism. I don't need my glasses here.
You don't need your glasses.
Hello. And I know for a fact because I told you I came in December for a month.
Uh-huh.
When I went back to the States, I said, let me do all my medical appointments before I go. And it was time for my optical, right? You know, you go to the
Yeah.
optometrist, they do your exam. So my optometrist says to me, he says, Andrea, he's like, what's going on? I said, what do you mean? He said, your prescription's cut in half. I said, what? He's like, yeah, your prescription's cut in half. And I knew my glasses were a little uncomfortable. He's like, yeah, I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it because you no longer, so they cut my prescription in half.
Okay.
When I got here, they couldn't get me my new prescription in time. So it took another 6 months for my new glasses to get here. Now I have them and they're too strong.
Oh wow.
So I just kind of use them if I'm reading something that's really, really tiny.
Yeah.
Because, they will sell things here in Arabic writing. And when you read the fine print, it will say things like not fit for consumption, but yet there's seeds for you to plant in your garden.
Mm-hmm.
So when I see that tiny, tiny writing, that's when I will pull them out and be like, what is this under this Arabic? But otherwise, I generally don't need my glasses.
Okay. So it's made an impact on your body.
Vitamin D deficiencies.
Mm-hmm.
I had that in the States. I don't have that here. I don't take extra vitamin D.
Yeah.
Any of that stuff.
Skin looks beautiful. And
Oh, listen, I'm working on a tan every day because I think I'm light-skinned in the States.
Really? Well, it's working. It is so working. Okay. And so you mentioned documenting this process.
Yes.
And I wanted to talk about that. So you turned what you captured, your pictures and your video, and made it a podcast. Is that right?
I did. I actually have, I started with the YouTube channel first,
Mhm.
AnjaAfreeca 2020. I started with that first. And as I was doing that, I was like, you know what? There's so many people on the continent that don't really have internet, right? But they may listen to radio. So I
Right.
thought maybe that it might be a better option for them as well to start the podcast.
Oh, great. Okay.
And that's how I started the podcast based on my YouTube content. So I'm always talking to both when I'm doing my videos and things like that. And I have about, I think, maybe 70 episodes for the podcast. And I just talk about like getting your mind right. How do you stay grounded while you're still in the matrix and preparing for this trip? Just trying to stay focused on what your task is, because I had family members that thought I was crazy.
Really?
I'm a sister that comes from the mental health background. I have a law degree. I had online businesses. People are just like, but you're educated. You have a job. You always work. You've traveled the world. Why Africa? And I was just like, why not? Why do we always consider every other country, island, place before we consider coming to the continent. And I don't care what, what your belief system is. Like some people are like, oh, they're Native American. Oh, they're this. Okay, say whatever you want. However, if you believe there are any connections to the continent, why wouldn't you consider Africa as a vacation place? You have a continent with 54 countries, and you're going to tell me you've never thought about visiting one?
That's
How
a good
is
point.
that?
You're right. Right.
I was that way. I was that way until I woke up, right? I lived in the UK for 6 months in the 80s. I've been to Spain twice. I've been to Germany, Amsterdam, Trinidad, Tobago, Jamaica several times. One of my favorite vacation places. My people are from Barbados, my dad's family. My mother's people are Gullah Geechees. So I've done, North Carolina, South Carolina, Maine. I ran track for many years. So that took me to travel through different places in the States. But not once was I thinking about Africa. It wasn't until I was like 26 that I was like, you know what? I'm going to give myself a birthday gift and I'm going to Africa. And everybody's like, by yourself? Yep. I found an African dance troupe that was doing dancing and drumming. They had a trip to Africa. I went with them. I didn't know anyone. I was 26 years old. That was my birthday gift. I went to Senegal for 30 days and I took African dance and drumming. Oh, and even then, you couldn't have told me I'd be living in Africa now.
Yeah. 30 days. That's a long time.
It was. No running water, no electricity, no television, no radios. We cooked our food and I was a vegetarian at that time. So, then you couldn't really be a vegetarian coming to the continent because they put meat in everything.
Right.
So, everything had meat in it. So we was eating beans and peanut butter, and sprouts.
Oh, wow. You definitely lost some weight on that one.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So, it was a blessing. But for me, it's the culture. I just love the culture of it. I always loved the U.S. because I'm very clear that my people built the United States. Yeah. But I am also clear that my people did not build the United States for them.
Okay.
There's a difference.
For sure. For sure. Definitely. Wow, that is so interesting. I definitely want to get those links from your YouTube because I don't think I found that when I was searching for your information. I found the podcast, so I have that one, but so I'll definitely want to get the YouTube. I would love to see that video.
For sure. It's youtube.com/c/AnjaAfreeca 2020. You have to put that 2020 on the end because that's when I started the channel. So it's about 2 years old now. And there are videos for all of the countries that I've been through, for Ghana, Sierra Leone, and Gambia. And the reason why I went to Sierra Leone is because I did my African ancestry results, right? And I chose African ancestry because it is Black owned. And I was under the belief that they did not sell your DNA. All these other ones, they got scams with them selling people's DNA. African ancestry did not have that. And that's why I dealt with them. And I actually had attended lives with one of the owners of the company. And she came through and explained the process. So when I did African ancestry, it came back 100% Mende from Sierra Leone. So I knew I had to go to Sierra Leone.
That's a great idea. If you are taking the trip, look into that first.
Yes. So that's another thing that may give people some direction, right?
For sure. Definitely. Any misconceptions you want to speak on as far as, going to Africa?
Of course. That's all we've been fed, right? Because the notion is to keep us divided. They did it with us as different cultural groups in the U.S., right? Jamaicans, Haitians, African Americans, Southerners, Westerners, like all that division, that's all nonsense to keep us distracted, right? So what they wanted us to believe was that Africans did not like African Americans.
Yes, you hear that.
And that Africans were involved in slavery, right? And we know that to probably be true because we know that the spoils of war were also given to people as indentured servants.
Yes.
Okay, but did they really appreciate what was going to be done? Because even with spoils of war, those people marry into those families. After a certain amount of time away, those people are returned, allowed to be released and come back to their families, right?
Okay.
But we don't talk about Black people that was involved. So if you think that Africans were involved in slavery, how do you know that your people weren't part of those folks involved in slavery?
You don't know, right?
Hello. So who has time? You could forgive the other man for what he's did to you and work for him and smile in his face and marry into you. Like, you could do all that, but you can't do that with your own people. We are so unforgiving and overly critical when it comes to each other. So we were fed that notion, that lie that Africans don't like African Americans, right?
Yes.
I've gotten nothing but love from the continent and all the countries that I've gone to. And yes, there's hustlers, but we know there's hustlers amongst us.
Right.
We know we've learned from the best. So it shouldn't be anything when we come to the continent that we know what we're dealing with. So that's one of the things, that Africans don't like African Americans. That's false. That there aren't suitable places to live, that there are no, malls, because the shoppers got to have their malls, honey.
Right.
There's no shoppers, there's no malls, and there aren't talented people. But we know a lot of the talent that's in the West, in the diaspora, comes from the continent.
True.
They take the best doctors from here. So how could there not be untapped talent still remaining here?
That's true.
So we don't think about it that way. The food, it's definitely more healthy than what we're getting in the West because it's being tampered with in the West. Some of the best hairstylists, you get a whole head of braids and it is not $1,000. You might pay $10 with 3 people working on your head. And that would be a high price one. Right? If you wanted to get your hair done. So, it's a lot of different, we could go on and on, but the weather, there's cold weather here. People wear jackets, especially during the winter. Yeah. During the cold season, so you can get the flexibility of weather. The starving children, I haven't seen any because it's mangoes growing on every tree. It's morangos growing on the tree. Moringa, some of the healthiest things are growing on these trees. A lot of times they don't even know what sickle cell and diabetes is because they drinking a tea every day that they get right in their yard called Never Die. So they don't really know these illnesses because they don't exist like that here.
Oh, wow.
Right. So we're fed all of these notions. So I'm learning how to go in my yard. I have jasmine growing in my yard. I have papaya, guava, neem, baobab. They say baobab in the States. They say baobab here. So all these different things that are just actual nutrients with these are the multivitamins in these areas, natural multivitamins that you can take on a daily basis and keep your immune system up. Malaria is a real thing. So some people might want to prevent against that. I didn't do anything about malaria, and I have not contracted malaria the time that I've been here. But I also take herbs that if I did, it might not show the same way, right?
Okay.
So yellow fever, they haven't had any yellow fever cases in a long time, but they still offer that shot. So if you're a person that was traveling the world and you took yellow fever 10 years ago, you do not have to repeat it. It's already in your system.
Okay.
So some people are concerned about, the shots that you need to come. You don't need that. And a lot of the countries do not require the vaccine. You do not need a vaccine passport. All these lies that people are told to deter them from coming. They do not require the COVID vaccination here in the Gambia. Have your negative COVID test and you're fine.
Yeah.
And you take a test upon leaving. That's it. You do need visas. You can get your visa in the States. Here's the trick. When you pay for your visa in the States, they charge you $200. If you pay your visa upon arrival, you pay $65.
So that's an option. Okay.
That's the hustle, though. So the States, what I would say to anyone is always check with the embassies as well. Before you
Okay.
travel, check with the embassy of the country that you're going to, and they will have the most recent updated list of requirements for your travel. But don't
Okay.
let other people, because I remember people telling me, oh, you better be careful because you're not going to be able to travel without the vaccine and you're going to need that international passport. And I'm like, where are you getting your information from? I'm talking to somebody that just arrived there this week. You listening to the news, like that's not
Yeah.
true.
Mm-hmm.
It's not true. And they tell you this information to deter you.
Right.
And some of us are so gullible, we just believe what we're told. And that's why what you're doing is so important,
Okay.
right? Break down the nonsense that's being told and give the heart of the story, give the core of it. What's the real facts? What's really going on behind the scenes? So I so appreciate your platform for that.
Oh, well, thanks. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
that.
You're welcome.
Definitely. And I'm glad that I discovered yours, and I definitely will share this. Definitely excited to share this. This conversation has been talked about, but I haven't been hearing too much lately. So I just want to get that conversation going again
Yes.
and share that. So I appreciate you letting us in and sharing that personal
Of course.
experience. It's very personal, but you want to share that with us, and I appreciate that.
You're
So,
welcome. Anytime you're ready to come to the continent, you have a place to stay. You are
oh,
welcome.
appreciate that. Definitely have to put that on the list
Yes, of course.
for sure. Anything else to share?
That's it. Just, travel to Africa. That's what all of my platforms are about,
Uh-huh.
encouraging us to travel to Africa. When I tell you everybody else from everywhere in the world is here except us, it's almost
Mm,
upsetting. I see
yeah.
people from Holland, Germany, Italy. They come here and they open businesses. Africa has been their playground for many years. We
Okay.
just didn't know about it. We last on that ship.
Uh-huh.
But they've been coming here, setting up businesses, buying up beach property. Where else you gonna go and buy property for 2,000 and own the land? The land and the house is yours.
Right.
You can take
That's
your sweet time building. For under $10,000, you can build a house.
that's unheard of. Like, that's
This is it.
shocking.
So when I
Yeah.
see them arriving at the airport and looking like they going straight to safari in these Land Rovers with about 100 suitcases packed on top, the
Mm,
whole family from the grandmother to the brand new babies, they don't look like us,
mm-hmm.
but they
Mm-hmm.
know what Africa offers. And I've said to them, why here out of the places that you come from? Why? I
Yeah.
have to ask that question because I don't understand it. And they tell me all the same reasons that I said:
Okay.
freedom, peace, the ability to move around, and
Okay.
people not be judged. Nobody cares about your hair, your makeup,
Mm-hmm.
nobody cares. You could go
Yeah.
outside with your plaits that you just woke up in, and
Uh-huh.
ain't nobody paying attention to you. They don't care.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to travel to Africa. I cannot say that enough. Even if it's just a vacation place, a place to do your research, a place to open a business, a place for ideas, to bring back things to sell to the States. Africa is ours. We deserve to be here. Whether we want to visit, live here, whatever. I can't encourage that enough.
Okay. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you, Anja Africa.
Thank
You
you.
enjoy your time there, and I appreciate you so much. You have a uh, I'll be sharing your information, and I will be in touch
Thank you so much. Peace and light to everybody. See you all soon.
for sure. Thank you guys for listening. Take care.
you.